Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another C++ for Beginners tutorial. And I'm really excited for making this video because this video is going to be a milestone. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can build your own calculator application. So if you have watched my previous videos and you are also watching this one and you build this application together with me, you should really feel proud of yourself because you have made a great progress. So let's build that application now. Here I have opened my Visual Studio, and let's very quickly explain what we want to do before we start write code. So I want my user to enter two numbers and also operation sign, and then depending on those two numbers and that operation, we want to calculate the result and then write that result to our user. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to declare variables that are going to hold those numbers and that operation sign. And since we want our user to be able to enter decimal point numbers, so not only integers, but decimal point numbers as well, we are going to declare variables that can hold decimal point numbers, and those can be float and double. So let's declare float variable, for example, and let's call it num1, which is going to hold our first number, and also another one, which is going to be called number2 and hold our second number. And after we have declared these two, let's also declare a variable that is going to hold our operation sign. And since that is a character, we need to use a character type for that variable. So let's say char, and let's call that variable operation, like this. Okay, and now after we have created these three variables, we can really allow our user to enter his numbers and his operation. And we want to do that in the following order. So we want to say cin, and then first our user has to enter the first number, and then after that we want our user to enter the operation sign. So let's say operation, like this, and after that our user has to enter the second number. And this window here, guys, this is called IntelliSense, and it really makes your code writing easier. So you can navigate this list here using your arrows, and then you can also use tab key so that it finishes your variable name for you if you want that. Okay, so now we have entered our first number, our operation, and then our second number as well, like this. And another thing that I want to write out to my user, because this is going to be the best calculator ever, let's write that title to our user. So let's write here, before he enters anything, a quick title. So let's say cout, and then let's say that is going to be called CodeBeauty calculator. You can call yours whatever you want. So like this, and let's add these here so that it looks prettier. Okay, and now if I run my program, well, you see that it really looks like this. And now we are able to enter one number. After that, we want our user to enter operation, like this, and then we want to enter the second number, like this. And then after we press enter, our program should really calculate the result of this operation. In this current situation, it is not really doing anything else because we haven't written code for that. Okay, so now let's solve this problem that we have here. So at this point, you should really have an idea yourself on how to solve this problem using if-else statements and also nested if-else statements. So if you're not familiar with those, I'm going to link one of my previous videos here. So make sure to watch that video as well. But in this video, I want to show you the more appropriate way for solving this particular problem, and that is going to be using switch case statement. So what is switch case statement? Well, switch case statement is, as well as if-else statement, used when you want to execute a block of code depending on a certain condition, so depending on a value of a certain variable. But switch case statement is particularly used in a situation where that variable can potentially hold a lot of different values. And if you look at our operation variable here, you should really notice that this variable can hold 6 different values. And what are those 6? Well, our user can decide to enter operation for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, modulating, and then what if our user does not really want to use our application, but he wants to hack it? So if he decides that he doesn't want to enter one of these 5, but he really enters some non-valid arithmetic operation, we should also cover that case. So we should really, as programmers, predict all these 6 situations and cover all these 6 cases. I'm going to add one end line here so that my text is formatted nicely. And then let's really show how this switch case statement is used. So the first thing that I want to write is switch, like this. And then if you press tab, you see that you are getting some default syntax for this switch case. For now, I'm going to delete that, and I want to show you how you can really write that yourself. And inside these parentheses here, I want to write out the name of my variable that I want to switch through or switch on. And that is going to be my operation variable, because depending on the value of this operation variable, we are going to perform a different calculation on these 2 number variables. So I'm going to say here operation, and then in these curly brackets here, we really want to cover all our cases. So the first case, let's say that our first case is going to be a situation where our user enters minus operator. So I'm going to use these single quotes, and then inside these single quotes, I'm putting the value that our variable can potentially hold, and that is this minus operator here. And after that, I'm going to add this column sign here, like this. And then after this column sign, I really want to put out whatever code I need to execute in the case that our operation corresponds to this sign here. And what I want to execute in this case is I want to say cout, and let's write out our first number, and then let's write out our operation, and then let's write out our second number so that our user really gets a nicely formatted text. And after that, I'm going to add this is equal to sign. And here we are going to put really our result. And that result is going to be our first number minus, because our user has entered this minus. So our first number minus our second number. So let's write out number 1 minus number 2, like this. And after we have covered this first case, we need to add one more keyword, and that is going to be break. And this break keyword is really used so that our switch case statement knows where our first case ends. So I'm saying here, whenever my operation is equal to this sign here, you are going to execute this code, and you should really stop executing that case when you come to this break statement. Okay, so this is going to be our first case. Our second case is going to be a situation where our user, let's say, enters this plus sign. And in that situation, we really want to write out to our user this text here. So the same text, we want to really write out our first number plus, in this case, our second number, and then is equal to, and then we are going to add really this calculation here. So number 1 plus number 2, like this. And in this situation as well, we want to add this break statement at the end, like this. Okay, so these are 2 potential cases, and now I'm going to really write out the rest of them. So I have written out these remaining cases, and in each of these cases we really want to write out to our user his first number, after that his operation, second number, and then this equal sign. And then in each of these cases we are performing adequate calculation, so we are performing that operation that our user has entered and writing that result out to our user. And after each of these cases we really need to put this break statement And you really have to put this break statement, because if you don't, you are going to get your program to behave as you don't want it to. And as you can see in this situation here, so in this situation where we are trying to modulate two numbers, we are getting an error. And if we hover over this number here, you can see that our error says expression must have integral or unscoped enum type. What does that mean? Well, if you haven't watched my video on operators, I suggest you to do so. I'm going to link it here. And here I'm quickly going to explain what is happening. So this operation here, this modulo operation, is operation that is really going to give you a remainder after dividing two whole numbers. And since this number here and this number here are of type float, we really cannot perform this calculation on these two variables. So what we have to do is we first have to check whether this number is really an integer number, whether it's a whole number, and this number as well. And since our float can hold decimal point numbers and integers as well, we really, in certain situations only, can perform this modulating operation. And let me explain what I mean by this, that our float can hold decimal point numbers and integers as well. Well, this variable here, this number variable, can really have a value of 5.5, for example, but it can hold as well value of 5.0, which is really integer value, so it's 5 only. So now what we have to do is following. I'm going to delete this line here, and we first have to check whether both of these numbers are integers, and in that situation only we can perform this calculation. But in a situation where one of these two or both of them are not integers, we are going to write out to our user that that operation is not valid. So I'm deleting this code here. And then let's create two variables. So let's create a variable of type bool, and let's call it is num1 integer. So this variable is going to hold a value that is going to tell us is our number 1 integer value. And let's also create another variable that is going to be called is num2 int, and as well this variable is going to tell us whether our number 2 is integer. And let's develop now an algorithm so that we can know whether our number 1 or number 2 is integer number. And I'm going to ask you to write your solutions in the comments down below. So pause the video, think about it, and then write your solution. And without using any already made functions, as programmers, as engineers, you should really be able to figure out the solution on your own. So applying the knowledge that you have gotten from my previous videos, or this one, but I'm going to say from my previous videos. So pause the video and write your solution. So this question is not really a question of programming, it's more of a question of thinking in a logical way. And if you remember when we were talking about casting operators, we said that a casting operator is used to convert one data type into the other. And I'm going to link that video here. If you haven't watched it, make sure to do so. And here we are going to try to convert our floating point number, so our number 1 and our number 2, into integer data type, so into integer number. And how we are going to do that? Well, we are really going to say int, so this here is going to cast whatever we put after it into int type, and we are going to say please try to convert my number 1 into integer. And how does this work? Well, for example, if you have a number 1 that holds value of 5.7, when you try to convert that value into integer, what it does really, it says that 5.7, so that 0.7 part really, bye-bye. I'm going to take only this 5 part, so only this whole part of a number. So in that situation, we are really going to get only 5 from this 5.7 floating point number. So what I'm going to say now is I'm going to say whatever this expression here, this casting operation results with, I'm going to really try to compare that with the initial value of my number 1 variable. So I'm going to say num1 is my converted number 1, so converted to integer, equal to number 1. like this. And how does this calculation here work? Well, as I said, for example, if you have a number 1 that holds a value of 5.0, so 5.0, this part here is really going to take this 0.0 part of a number and delete it. It's going to keep only this 5, so only this whole part of a number. And after that, we have this is equal to operator, and then we are trying to really check whether that is equal to 5.0. And the result of this is going to be true. So with this here, we have checked really whether our number is going to be equal to our floating point number. So this result here, we are going to assign this value to our is number 1 integer variable. So here I'm going to say, please assign the result of this operation to our is number 1 integer variable, like this. And let's put this expression here, so this whole expression inside these parentheses, so that we really can see that this is an expression, and the result of this expression should be assigned to this is number 1 int variable. And now we are going to do the same for our is number 2. So I'm going to say is number 2 integer, and we are going to say that that is equal to, I'm trying to convert my number 2 to int, and then compare that to my float number 2. And after this, we really can now do our algorithm to perform this modulo, where it is, this modulo operation on our two numbers in the case where both of them are integers. So here I'm going to say if is my number 1 int, and then also is my number 2 int, like this. In this situation here, I'm going to perform this modulo operation. And as you can see here, I have used only these two Boolean values here in this expression. So I didn't say, please check is my number 1 int equal to true, like this. Nor I have said, please check is my number 2 equal to true, like this. Because this part here, and this part here are really redundant. And what this expression here translates in, it translates in is true equal to true, and that is really redundant. So I'm going to remove this part here and this part here, and it should work fine like this for Boolean values, so Boolean variables. And in this situation here, where both of these are integers, we really can perform this modulo operation. So in this situation here, I'm going to take this code and I'm going to copy it like this, and I'm going to say, please write out my number 1, then my operation, then my number 2 is equal to sign, and then here I'm going to put adequate calculation. So I'm going to say, take my number 1, convert it to int, and then modulate that with my number 2 that is as well converted to int, like this. Okay, so in this situation where both of these are integers, we are going to really write out the result of modulating operation to our user. Let's add empty space here and here as well. But in the situation where one of these two is not integer, or both of them are not integers, I'm going to say else. And in that situation, I'm really going to write out to my user that this operation is not valid. So let's say just not valid, like this. So in any of these two situations, whether we write out this line of code here or this line of code here, after that we are going to come here, and here we have to put our break statement, like this. So after each case comes break. And now we can really test this part of code here that we have written. So if I run my program, the first thing that I want to test is, let's say, 5.5 plus 2.2. And we get the expected result, so 7.7. Let's run our program again. And this time I want to check whether my modulo operation is working as it should, because this code here is really specific. So let's say 5 modulo 2, like this. And as well, we have gotten correct result. And let's run our program one more time. And here I really want to trick my program and try to make it to modulate two numbers that are not whole numbers. So 5.2 modulated by 2. And as well, our program works as it should. So it says not valid operation. Okay. So if you have noticed, in this current situation, I really have to run my program each time that I want to perform a calculation. And that is because we haven't learned anything about iteration or loops so far. And those videos are coming. So make sure to subscribe to my channel and also click the bell icon so that you are notified when I publish those videos. And in that situation where we learn iteration and loops, we are really going to be able to run our programs indefinitely, which means to run our calculator application until we really decide to stop it. Okay, so after we have covered these 5 cases here, there is only one situation left to cover, and that is a situation where our user enters any other sign that is not one of these 5 here. And that situation we are really going to write like this. So we are going to say default. So in the case where our user enters operation that is not going to correspond to any of these 5 signs, we are going to execute our default situation. And here we really want to write out a message to the user that is trying to hack our program. So you can write whatever message you want to the user that is trying to hack the program that you have worked so hard to build. And I'm going to put here okay. You really can write out whatever you want to that type of user, like this. So in the case where our user has not entered this, nor this, nor this, nor this, nor this, which means our user has entered some other sign, we really want to write out not valid operation. And let's test now our default case. So I'm going to run the program. And I'm going to take the role of a malicious user that is going to try to hack your application. And I'm going to say, please try to perform this calculation here. So 5Z9. Not really. You have been smart enough to predict his malicious behavior. And you have said, if you haven't put here a valid arithmetic operation, then no, I cannot help you. This is not a valid operation. And there is really one thing that you have been wondering about for the most part of this video, and that is this break statement here. So why I have said that after each case you have to put break. And now you want me to explain that, do you? Do you really? Wouldn't that be a spoiler for a situation where you decide on your own to delete this break statement here and then run your program, even though I have said not to, and you enter some calculation and you remember that I have said that you are going to get unexpected behavior, but was she lying? Was she not? And then you decide to execute this calculation and boom, here's your unexpected behavior. So what has happened here? Well, your program has really recognized that this operation here that you have entered is this minus operation. And after that, it has written out this number 1, so 7, and then operation minus, and then this number 2, 5 is equal to, and then it has calculated number 1 minus number 2, which is 7 minus 5, and that is equal to 2. And after that, it has really continued executing other cases, which means it has come to this line here, and then it has written one more time your number 1 minus number 2, so 7 minus 5 is equal to, and then it has performed this number 1 plus number 2 calculation, and 7 plus 5 is going to be equal to 12. And then it has come to this first break command, and it has stopped the execution of your switch case. So why has this happened? It has happened because you haven't put this break command here, and in that case your program is really going to be executing your cases until it comes to the first break command. And if you have noticed here, in this default situation, I haven't really put any breaks. You can as well put your break statement here. You can say break here. But even if you don't, even if you didn't put your break here, and your program really tries to execute something after this line here, there is really nothing to execute. So you are not going to get a problem in this situation here. I hope that you liked this video and that you have built your own calculator application. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon as well. Share this video with anyone who would like to learn programming, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye!